If the Four Nations face-off was supposed to be a gimmick, nobody told Captain Canada Sidney Crosby and the rest of the players during Canada-Sweden on Wednesday night. Hunter and I are going to break down Crosby's marvelous performance and more on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media platforms at synonym for wet. Joined as always by the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's Twitter account a follow at LO_Penguins. And of course, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine because we're your team every day. Don't forget that we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts as well as YouTube. Plus, if you follow us on YouTube, go ahead and hit that notification button. That way you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Hunter, wow. If anybody had any doubts about the Four Nations face-off within 10 minutes of Canada-Sweden on Wednesday night, they were completely thrown out the window because that game, that atmosphere, everything about it was absolutely marvelous. It was so much fun. One of the best hockey games I've watched in quite a long time. A 4-3 victory for Team Canada in overtime, and it had just about everything you want in a hockey game. And we will get to the game, to Crosby's performance, and everything in between in just a second. But we have to start with the moment that set the tone for last night's game. Obviously, it's in Montreal. It's at the Bell Center. Everybody knows the meme. When you go play the Montreal Canadiens, there's a 45-minute pregame ceremony honoring some sort of player who played for the Montreal Canadiens 90 years ago that you've never heard of, and they're going to give him a golden stick, and they're going to play a 15-minute video package about it, and his family, his extended family, his friends, that guy who served him coffee in the morning are all going to be part of the ceremony. And that was still part of the Four Nations face-off last night in Montreal, but it was bringing out some of the giants of the international hockey community. And I know you like clowning on me because I'm a pro wrestling fan at age 34, but we had a surprise entrance at the end of it, and it was none other than number 66, Mario Lemieux, to come out and start the night's festivities. The building went absolutely insane when he walked out, and he presents Crosby with a cool little banner. They shake hands, they take a picture. And as a Penguins fan, before this game started, I'm getting chills just thinking about this. I watched those two shake hands, do their photo op, and I know people get tired of hearing this in Pittsburgh. I really do. I understand. But in that moment, I had to go, good Lord, are we spoiled? Because we went from arguably one of the greatest hockey players of all time to now one of arguably the greatest hockey players of all time.
I said it on Twitter after because Bob Grove had a similar statement. We have been spoiled for the last 3 decades in this city when it comes to hockey. Seeing Mario come out to that ovation, seeing him wink at Crosby and then tell him to come over and then have him shake his hand. I got chills when that happened, just considering how much both players have done for this organization, for this city, both on and off the ice. They are hockey giants, not just here, but in the entire world. They're 2 of the 5 greatest players to ever play this game. I still am a bit biased, so I'm going to put Mario at number 1, but Sid, he's at number 4 for me, in my opinion. 4 or 5, people can argue about that, whatever they want. He is in the top 5 for me, and seeing them reunite on that stage was awesome. Heck, I didn't even know Mario was going to come out there, by the way. That was just completely out of nowhere. He still looked like he could score 25 goals, by the way, but he was looking really sharp last night. And
I saw someone say, can you imagine if 66 takes his suit jacket off and reveals a Team Canada jersey, the house would go nuts. And he'd probably put up a 3-point performance because he's Mario Lemieux.
Yeah, man, Mario could be like, I'm going in, I'm going to take off this suit, I'm going to go get a 3 or 4 point night. Like, literally, he looked that good last night. And you know who else did? Teemu Selanne. Like, he looked like he could go pot 30 goals in the league right now. It was really nice seeing him back in Montreal, too, considering how he was really part of my childhood growing up. Like, he was still playing really well in the NHL. My girlfriend asked me who that was last night. Made me shed a little bit of a tear. She's gotten a lot more into hockey these last 4 years. But once I told her who he was, she smiled. She looked him up a little bit. She goes, okay, yeah, this guy's a legend. I'm like, yeah, Teemu Selanne is awesome. So going back to the Penguins, though, man, just an unbelievable moment. You saw also Mario read the opening lineup in the locker room. John Cooper even said after the game, that's the first time he ever met Mario Lemieux. He wanted him to read the lineup card. And what did he say at the end? Sid the Kid. Just, again, man, chills right to my spine. 66 forever. 87, put on another vintage performance. That's the thing, man. I am so glad, and I said this on Twitter, I am so glad more neutral fans, a lot more national media people got to see Sid put up that performance last night because he's been doing this all year for the Penguins. Not many people are talking about it because the Penguins have been really bad this year, but this is the level of play that we have seen from Crosby this year. So a lot of us here in Pittsburgh are like, yeah, ho-hum, this is what he's been doing this year. It was just awesome to see him do this on the international stage once again. And I said this to you after the game. I'll say it again here. This is Sid's country for hockey. Everyone else is just still a guest.
You're absolutely right. And we'll break down Crosby's performance, the rest of the game, and everything in the second segment. But Hunter really wanted to take this first segment and just kind of wax poetic about everything surrounding the game on Wednesday night, because I'll be completely honest with you. We have said it on the show that we were going to watch it no matter what. We're hockey sickos. If there's hockey being played, we are going to watch it because that's just who we are. But there was a level of skepticism in me before this tournament started. I didn't think in any world it was going to be a glorified all-star game. We know how hockey players are. They put on their country's jersey and they are going to go hard for it, because whether it's this, whether it's the World Championships, whether it was the 2016 World Cup of Hockey, when these guys get the opportunity to play for their country, they take full advantage. And one of the things I said to you last night during the game was part of the reason I think this game in this tournament now is going to work so well is it's been pretty much nearly a decade since we've gotten, I don't want to say meaningful, because again, this is a bit of a gimmick tournament, but it still is the precursor to the Olympics. It's going to be the precursor to the NHL bringing back the World Cup of Hockey in 2028. So you go nearly 10 years without a legitimate kind of everybody in the NHL can be involved kind of tournament. And I know there's a couple countries who aren't involved, but a lot of these guys have either never or haven't worn their country's jersey in a long time. So they finally get the opportunity and they're going to take full advantage. The other thing that we have talked about this with Josh Yohe, he writes about it all the time. If you're a Penguins fan, you know this. Most places are green with envy when it comes to Sidney Crosby. He comes to town, they play the role of villain, and they'll boo him just because he's not on their team. If there's a place where that never happens, it's Montreal. Montreal loves Sidney Crosby. He comes in as a Penguin and they show their respect. He gets named and his name gets announced in the starting lineup when the Penguins are in town. They cheer for him. Last night, full body chills for me before he gets the overtime winning assist. He's just on the ice and the entire Bell Center is chanting Crosby, Crosby, Crosby. And nothing creates an atmosphere like international hockey, and getting to watch that was incredible. So again, if anybody thought for even a second, and I know we did for a little bit, that this is a gimmick, put that thought out of your head.
Yeah, like you saw in the first, heck, not even first 10 minutes last night, Pat, the first 5 minutes. Oh no, the players are trying in this. Look at the way they were celebrating goals. Like they were screaming, they were getting fired up for their home country because it means that much to them. This is the first time we've seen this sort of best on best in almost a decade, as you said. I know there are some other countries that aren't there because it's only 4 nations, of course, but still, you're seeing players that have never represented their countries before on this international stage a year before we go back to the Olympics for the first time NHL-wise in 12 years. These players aren't just playing for this year. They're playing for a spot on next year's team. That's how much it means to them. That's why a lot of them are also taking this event really seriously. And I said it on both platforms last night, Twitter and Blue Sky. That was one of the best hockey games I have watched in some time. The overtime was fantastic. I even tweeted, it was breathtaking to watch that 3-on-3. Canada puts McDavid, Marner, and McKinnon out there. They put McDavid, McKinnon, and Makar. Like they were alternating forwards, but also keeping McDavid and Makar out there. It was crazy, this back and forth action. A little bit of a trial run for 10-minute overtime to maybe bring it to the NHL at some point. We'll probably discuss that a little bit later on, maybe in the summer as like a cool new feature the NHL could add, because I don't think anyone wanted that game to be decided by a shootout. And heck, the reason why that game was won in overtime was because of the 10-minute overtime, Pat. If they had kept the 5-minute overtime, this game would have went to a shootout and I would have been upset. But these players are taking this seriously. It was a great game to watch. Sweden really lackluster early, but they came on, especially in the second and third periods. They gave Canada one heck of a fight. And we also should mention, while we're going to discuss Crosby a lot more in depth coming up here in the second segment, Rickard Rakell and Erik Karlsson were outstanding last night for Team Sweden. Rakell was getting plenty of quality chances, had a nice deflection chance right around the net, was a really big screen for one of Sweden's goals. Karlsson, really nice little soft touch pass to Adrian Kempe before his goal. I thought both Rakell and Karlsson were two of the best skaters on Team Sweden. You can make an argument that they were the two best skaters on Team Sweden last night. They were fantastic.
You certainly could. And with that, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to discuss Crosby's performance and the game as a whole, as well as touch on very briefly tonight's game when the United States takes on Finland at 8 o'clock. But before we do that, we've got to take a quick break. So stick with us. We will talk about that when we get back. But first, we've got to tell you about our first sponsor of the day, and that is Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. I love the no shells variety. I'm a busy guy. I don't got time to crack all those shells, so I just use that no shells, pop it in my mouth, and it's a great grab and go snack, whether I'm sitting at my desk, on a road trip, or just need that quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. Plus, if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell option is a classic favorite. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit Wonderful Pistachios to learn more. All right, welcome back to the Thursday edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. And you kind of ended the segment there talking about the performance of Team Sweden. Let's begin there and keep that discussion going, Hunter. I thought it was a very strong game, like you, for both Rickard Rakell and Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson on the ice, though, for Canada's overtime winner, but you can't really blame him on that one. It's Mitch Marner. Elite shot, just picked the right corner, and it was a laser. So he played it as well as he could, and it was just a case of an elite shooter getting an elite goal. But when Sweden finally got on the board, I texted you, and I guess I was wrong, but it was a great rolling screen by Rickard Rakell. It looked like on the one replay that he got a piece of it, and I thought it might have been his goal, but ultimately it was not. Overall, though, like you said, the two of them for Sweden, especially once Sweden got their legs under them, started pushing back on Canada, they were two of the better players for the team. And it gets into what we discussed on the preview show. They are both being put in positions to succeed. You look at the pairing that Erik Karlsson is on, it gives him a little bit more room to run, to be more Erik Karlsson than he can be, say, in Pittsburgh. And Rickard Rakell, just on a line where at first I thought they were going to tell Zibanejad, just give him the puck and get out of the way. Instead, they told him, just go create chaos. Just go behind the net, be a menace on the forecheck, get to the front of the net. And he did it to almost perfection.
Yeah, after that screen, and I mentioned this in the first segment, he almost scored on the next shift. Like, he had a really nice deflection, but it was an even better save by Jordan Bennington. So I felt like he was their best forechecker throughout that game, in my opinion. He was everywhere on the ice. He actually almost set up the overtime goal as well. Really nice move to knife around one of the Canada defenders in overtime, sets up Mika Zibanejad for a really good one-timer. Bennington just made another nice save there. Like, Rakell, he was awesome in this game. And the same thing for Karlsson. He was doing all the little things right, especially in his own zone. He wasn't out to lunch defensively. I mentioned that play that he made to Adrian Kempe. Really nice little soft touch pass to him before Kempe just blew that puck past Bennington. Kempe with one of the more underrated releases, I think, in the NHL. He's been fantastic for the Kings this year. Really nice shot. And I just felt Karlsson was creating a lot of offense from the blue line. He was shooting the puck a lot more, it felt like, in this game, in my opinion. I was just happy with the way these two looked. It was a really nice performance from both of them. But, Pat, we do have to shift gears a little bit and discuss a bit more on Captain Sidney Crosby. Just another casual, ho-hum, three-point night. He absolutely cooks Gustav Forsling during one sequence, and that's no slouch, people. Gustav Forsling, in my opinion, is the best defensive defenseman in this league. People don't understand how good he is with the Florida Panthers. He's fantastic. And the way that Sid was able to cook him before sending that ridiculous pass to Mark Stone was unreal. Like, it was a crazy sequence. Before that, you have the very vaunted Canada power play where they scored in not even 20 seconds. McDavid to Sid to McKinnon. Really not much you can do about that. Don't take penalties. Anyone that in this tournament, please do not take penalties against this Canada power play. And the way that Sid had eyes in the back of his head for that was awesome. And then he gets the overtime assist on the Mitch Marner goal. I will say I was kind of getting a bit nervous because John Cooper was not really shifting him too much in overtime, which I get to a degree because you can put out McDavid out there, McKinnon, Cale Makar. I felt like Cale Makar never came off the ice in overtime, by the way. But once Sid came on, I'm like, okay, we might see some magic right here. Gets the drop pass, goes right off the ice. Marner makes no mistake with that puck. That was fantastic. But it was just awesome seeing him get his moment. And then the Crosby chance, well, right before he gets the assist, man, just chills every single time. He then gets the first star of the game, Pat. Crosby chance ensued once again. Just fantastic.
3 assists last night. He currently, if you can believe it, which of course we can on this podcast, leads Team Canada in points after one game, which, given the absolute embarrassment of riches at forward, I don't think any of us really expected to happen. We figured it would be Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, maybe even Cale Makar, who is arguably the best offensive defenseman, maybe ever. He's that good. And the thing I don't want to overstate or oversell his overtime assist, because at the end of the day, yes, it was pretty much just a drop pass, but it's great spatial awareness by Sidney Crosby in 3-on-3 overtime, because he knows that he's at the end of a shift. He's got players and reinforcements coming. And as much as we don't like it at the NHL level, because it's kind of just become a game of keep away in the NHL, in international hockey, especially with this level of talent, doubling back into the neutral zone is more or less just a regroup. It's not teams playing keep away and waiting for the perfect moment. It's them gearing up to make another run. So he knows that he's got Mitch Marner coming off the bench. So he gains the zone, pulls Sweden's defenders deep, throws it back because he knows Marner's coming. And then Marner makes no mistake with that beauty of a shot to give Canada a win. Because I'll say this, in the first period, it looked like it was going to be a dog walking. It looked like Canada was going to sleepwalk their way to 3 points, which, in case you don't know, the Four Nations Face-Off has adopted the 3-point format. 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime win, no points for an
Please bring this to the NHL, Pat.
Yes, please, for the love of God, no points for a regulation loss. But at the end of the day, that is just a beautiful play from Sidney Crosby. And yeah, it wasn't his best pass tonight. The best pass was that power play backhand no look. But at the end of the day, it was a statement from Sidney Crosby last night, because it would have been very easy for him to be overshadowed by some of this younger talent with McKinnon, McDavid, and the rest of the crew. But that was almost Sidney Crosby telling the world, hey, don't forget about me just yet.
I'm still him is basically what he is still saying to the entire hockey world. One of the best players to ever play this game, still one of the best players in the league. That performance last night was awesome. And there was a really great quote from Canada head coach John Cooper after this game. He even said he will go down as the greatest player to represent his country. Pretty high praise there, wouldn't you say, Pat?
Yeah, and I don't like right now, can you really dispute it? He hasn't lost a game as the captain of Team Canada, and they're on a 26 game winning streak with him on Team Canada. Team Canada's last loss with Sidney Crosby on the roster was in the 2010 preliminary round of the Winter Olympics against Team USA. And since then, with Sidney Crosby on Team Canada's roster, they have not lost a game. It's hard to dispute, because he's been so good for Team Canada and just so good in general. But I can't disagree with Cooper's assessment, because, well, what's there to disagree with, really? So we'll leave it there for Canada and Sweden. Great game there tonight. We finally get to see Team USA. They will take on Finland at 8:00. And this is going to be our first look at what you and I have continued to say is likely the best crop of talent for the United States. And I'm going to put this marker down now, Hunter. I get the feeling this is going to be very similar to last night's game. I think the USA is going to come out hair on fire. They're going to be looking to take advantage and take control of this game early. But we talked about it yesterday. There is still a good amount of talent on Team Finland. So they are going to have to put together a full 60-minute effort to get 3 points out of this game.
Agreed. I think Finland is definitely going to have some good pushes in this game, but I will say the U.S. has a pretty big advantage on the back end. Finland's defense heading into this very weak compared to what they normally would have, especially with Miro Heiskanen out. But again, the U.S. will have a big advantage back there. Even in goal, I will still take Connor Hellebuck in this one. Up front, it's going to be really fascinating to see the chess match between these two teams, with Barkov going up against that top line of potentially Jack Eichel. Is he going to be iced against Austin Matthews? That's going to be a lot of fun, because I keep saying that Barkov is the best two-way center in the league, and the numbers would support that as well. So I'm curious to see how that goes, but I'm just excited to watch this Team USA, man, with how much talent this team has. And I know a lot of Penguins fans are down on Mike Sullivan, myself included. I still want to see how he can cook on the international stage with a roster that is as good as this. But hey, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the Friday episode. We still have more Sidney Crosby acolytes to get to before we close out today's episode. This is the Sidney Crosby episode for everyone out there.
It really is. It is going to be a full Sidney Crosby praise episode. But Team USA versus Team Finland tonight, 8:00 on the worldwide leader ESPN. So we will obviously be watching that, and we will talk more about it after the fact on our Friday episode. But we have to take one more break. When we come back, even more accolades for Sidney Crosby, and it has nothing to do with the Four Nations face-off. We will tell you about that when we come back, so stick with us. But first, we got to tell you about our last sponsor of the day, and that is Factor Meals. If you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, Factor offers wholesome smoothies as well, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and everything else to keep you fueled all day long. I'm a huge fan of how Factor takes the stress out of meal prepping. I don't have to turn my kitchen into a disaster area and wash a bunch of dishes. Plus, I have given a shot of protein. I have tried their Protein Plus meals because in the last year, I've been working really hard to try to get myself back into shape. As I always say, Hunter knows I'm this height. I'm not going to grow much vertically, so I better not grow much more horizontally. And that means really upping my protein intake. The convenience is unbeatable. Like I said, no prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. So eat smart with Factor and get started at factormeals.com/lockedonnhl50 off and use code lockedonnhl50 off to get 50% off of your first box plus free shipping. Just use code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOn50 off to get started. You'll get that 50% off and free shipping on your first box. That's Factor Meals. All right, welcome back to the Thursday edition. The Sidney Crosby is the GOAT edition of Locked On Penguins. I'm Patrick Damp, joined as always by Hunter Hodes. And this is something that kind of flew under the radar. And if I can give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on this, I wrote about this for KDKA TV's website earlier this week, because for the first time in a long time, I decided to open my personal Facebook page, and I saw one of those aggregator accounts post a picture of Crosby from when he played in juniors, and it said the QMJHL has decided to honor Crosby with a trophy. And I thought, I hate these stupid aggregator accounts. They post things that are blatantly false and just engagement bait. But then I checked the QMJHL's website, and what do you know? The QMJHL has named their Rookie of the Year award the Sidney Crosby Trophy. And before anybody shakes their head, before anybody goes, oh my God, this is just blatant marketing, they're trying to put Sidney Crosby's name on a trophy, we have to talk about how good Sidney Crosby was when he played for Rimouski in the Q. All of 2 seasons with the Oceanic, and he scored 120 goals, 183 assists, 303 points in 120 regular season games. So he was a goal per game player with Rimouski, and he had 303 points. That doesn't even count the QMJHL playoffs. It doesn't count the Memorial Cup playoffs. That is just regular season. And he did most of that scoring in his rookie year. So an absolutely deserved honor for Penguins captain Sidney Crosby. If you are the Rookie of the Year in the Q now, you will be named the winner of the Sidney Crosby Trophy.
You know what's funny, Pat? You didn't even mention his playoff stats from those 2 years as well. He was even better in the playoffs. For example, in 04-05 for Rimouski, 13 games, 14 goals, 31 points in those games. He was ridiculous. And then he carries over that play to the NHL his rookie season, gets over 100 points. Obviously, more than lives up to the hype, gets the 3 Stanley Cups. He's going down as one of the 5 greatest players to ever play this game. It is a well-deserved honor for Sidney Crosby to have that Rookie of the Year trophy named after him. And it's going to be awesome to see who gets that award every year because, hey, now you're getting an award named after one of the greatest players ever. Pretty awesome accomplishment. And heck, Sid, he's still trying to accomplish more at the back end of his career, trying to win this event, trying to win at the Olympics in 26, maybe trying to see at some point before he retires if he can get the Penguins back to the playoffs one more time before he calls it quits. So congratulations to Sid. Very, and I mean very well-deserved honor considering the video game numbers that he put up in junior.
One last thing about Crosby getting this trophy named after him that I thought was a really interesting fact about the Q's Rookie of the Year award. Prior to this, it didn't have a name. It wasn't some player who played in the Q in the 1940s or something like that. It was just called the Rookie of the Year. There was no name for it. So this is the first time that the QMJHL's Rookie of the Year award will have a name. And the commissioner of the league basically said when the league's board of directors or whatever you would call that got together to come up with the idea to name the trophy, it was entirely unanimous. There was no, maybe we should name it after this guy, maybe we should name it after this politician, anything like that. The decision was open and shut case. The QMJHL's Rookie of the Year award will be called the Sidney Crosby Trophy. So congratulations to Sid for yet another honor to put on his resume that at this point, probably longer than the Bible, but I digress. So that is going to do it for our Thursday episode of Locked On Penguins. Hunter and I will be back with a new episode on Friday. We will recap the game between USA and Finland, and we also will be taking your mailbag questions to end the week. We will put the call out for that later today. So if you've got any questions about the Pittsburgh Penguins, any sort of moves, even the Four Nations face-off, any of your hockey questions, we welcome them. We'll answer them on our Friday episode. But for now, for Hunter Hodes, I am Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we will be back on Friday.